Hi everyone, it's Georgia down in Australia, and this is another project for my February 2022 virtual faith art retreat, Hear My Prayer. I'm going to try and keep this simple. And this retreat is all about going back to basics, keeping things simple, putting away our need to get all the stuff, buy all the stuff, accumulate, collect all the stuff, and use all the stuff, or forget we have it and not use all the stuff. It's about simplifying the art process, not stressing about having to make these great projects, or for our Bible journaling to have to be about big artworks. It's about going back to the heart of why we do this thing. Now, this is the decor-ish part of the retreat, so I thought we would do something that brings in the kind of theme of praying the Psalms, which we have running through the retreat, and creating a decor piece that can showcase some of our favourite Psalms. So what we start with is an old frame. Now, this is just an old picture frame that I have picked up from a thrift store, and as you can see, it was $6. And what I'm going to do is, we don't need this. First of all, I'm going to get rid of this string. I'm sure it's very handy for hanging this. If yours has a hanging string and you plan to hang yours on the wall, keep the string. Don't cut it off like I just did. But I don't plan to keep mine on the wall. I'm going to have mine standing on a flat surface. Now I need to open these things up. Oh, look, they've already been opened. Right, I've grabbed my very professional tool, a knife. And I'm using this to open these things up a little bit more so I can get the backing out. Okay. Right, so the backing I will need, so keep that. The paper, not so much, but I'm keeping that just for sizing. Now, the piece of glass, if you're using a frame that has glass in it, we're not going to be needing this. But don't get rid of it. Put it aside, because one day we may just have a project that requires a sheet of glass. You never know. So never throw things away. Keep your glass somewhere safe. Be careful not to cut yourself. And if your frame is the kind that does not come with glass, well, then you don't have to worry. I'm going to give this a quick clean, simply because I've had it for a while, just sitting on the somewhere, waiting to be used. So it's gotten a little bit dusty. So I'm going to give it a clean because I am going to be painting it, and I don't want to be painting over dust and dirt. Now, this is a fairly quick project. The part that is going to take the longest is waiting for paint to dry. So do give yourself plenty of time, not so much for the creative part, but for waiting in between stages. Now, as you can see, this is not the best frame. I can actually see the corners here where the pieces have been put together. It's not very well done. It is a bit of a cheap and nasty kind of frame, but that's okay because I am painting it and repurposing it. So if you have an absolutely horrible frame like I do, don't you worry, because this will be absolutely fine. If you have a frame that you already really like the look of, and even this, there's no reason why I have to paint this. I could leave this just like that. So if you have a frame that you really like, it's a really pretty frame, and you like the surface, you like the finish, you can just keep it as it is and completely skip the following couple of steps. I am going to paint mine, and I'm actually going to, before I even start the painting, I am going to sand these little corner edges or jointing edges. There's a name, I'm sure there's a name, whatever they're called. Whoever knows what this section is called, where the two pieces come together, write it down in the comments below. Hey, that way I'll get a comment. Even if it is just a comment telling me that, I'm silly because I don't know stuff. Now, what I'm going to do is just sand that section here, because it's not showing on camera, but it is actually quite rough. It doesn't actually join very well. So just to give give myself a better finish or a better surface to work on, I'm just sanding that down. And I'm going to do that to all the four corners. And so another quick wipe down, because I don't want to be painting over the dust that I've created by sanding them down. But that is much better now. The first thing I'm going to do is give it a layer of white gesso. So with a fairly thick, soft brush, I am giving it a nice thick coat of gesso. And this is probably the part that takes the absolute longest in this project, because gesso does take a while to dry, especially when you paint it on a non-porous surface like this frame, which I don't think it's even wood. I know it looks like wood, but it has that horrible plasticky sort of finish, which nothing really sticks to, hence the use of gesso. But nothing really sticks to, and so the gesso or even paint just takes forever to dry. Now, if you don't have any white gesso, you can just use white paint. You don't have to use white. Now, what I'm going to be doing is giving it a big, thick layer of white. Then I'm going to add some color over the top, and then I'm going to sand that back so that there's a little bit of color, a little bit of the white from beneath it, and then even beneath the white, a little bit of the original frame. So if you don't want that kind of look, you can use a different color. So you might want to use one color for your base like I am now, and then another color on top, so that when you sand back the top color, you see some of the color that you've painted beneath it, if that makes any sense. So it does not have to be white. So I'm making my way all the way around the frame, as well as the outside edge, so that when it's hanging or sitting wherever it is and you see it from the side, you don't actually see the original color. Now, ordinarily, if I was working on paper or cardstock, I would be going back to the beginning and starting my second layer right now. But again, because this takes so long to dry, if I go and put a second layer on top here, you can see I'm already wiping off the color that I've put there. So I do need to let that completely dry before I add my second layer. And I do want a second layer because, as you can see, I can still see a lot of the color from beneath my gesso here. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll come back and give it a second layer. Once my white gesso had dried, I then did a second coat, which I have not filmed. Now I'm sort of thinking what color I want this frame to be. And I know I'm so predictable. I do tend to use the same sort of colors all the time, but that's why they're called our favorite colors, right? So I normally go in the blues and sometimes the greens. So today I'm going to go the sort of halfway option and use this Ocean color by Dina Wakley, which I have not used very much actually. So even though it's kind of similar to what I often use, it's not exactly. So I'm actually going to just squirt it directly onto the frame. And I'm going to paint my frame. Oh, that's a really nice color, isn't it? I'm going to give that a really nice thick coat. Okay, so once again, the very tedious and long part of this project is waiting for it to dry. So I'm going to let that sit overnight so it dries really, really well, because you want it to be very dry when you sand it. I left the paint to dry overnight and through most of the day, so it's really dry now. Now what you could do if you want is you could add another layer of colored paint on top of this, so that when you sand it you have different colors. I'm going to leave it like that, so when I sand it back I'll sort of see the white underneath, maybe some of the original frame. And what I might do later, after that's done, is I might give it a few gold highlights. Not sure about that yet, just still thinking about it. We'll see what it looks like. So just grabbing some sandpaper, all I'm going to do is just go around the frame and just give it a light sanding here and there. not necessarily over the entire frame because I do want to keep some of the original colour. On the flat parts, I'm just giving it some random scrapes. And then in those grooves, that's especially where I want to be getting rid of the top colour. So I'm just going to make my way around the entire frame. I'm actually going to do it off camera because I need to take it outside because it is making a terrible, terrible mess. So sandpaper lightly. If I do it really light, I will see the white underneath. If I do it a lot harder, like here, I get down to the original frame. So depending on what you actually want to see, you might want to just give it a very light sand, or you might want to sand it further down, especially if you've used a wooden frame and you want some of that brown wood to show through, then you might want to give it a deeper sand so that you've got the wood coming through. I'm going to give it mostly a light sand because I just want the white, but here and there I'm going to go a little bit deeper just to bring out that original sort of weird bluey dark strange color that it was. So I did a typical Georgia. I got to the point where I was happy and I thought, okay, that's it, no more, and I just kept going because I can't help myself. But I have got it to a stage where I think I like it. Now do be sure to also sandpaper the edges, the outer edges of the frame, because if you want your frame to look like a weathered frame, you want the whole thing to look that way, not just the flat side that you see. So just for authenticity, I then wiped it down to get all the dust off. Now what I think I'm going to do is just add a little bit of gold highlight here and there, and I'm going to do that using my Nouveau Glacier paste. I'm not quite sure how this is going to go, if it's going to dry and then stay on the frame or not. I really haven't used this very much, but I thought I'd give it a bit of a go and see what happens. So I'm just scraping a little bit of it out with a spatula because I don't want to put my fingers in there and get sort of, germs and things growing in there, as they tend to do if you use your fingers to take stuff out of jars. And just with a paper towel, I am just grabbing just a little bit of it. And I'm just going to I don't really have a plan, you see. I'm already sort of thinking, oh, maybe not, but it's too late. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a rub here and there. I don't want to cover the whole thing. Then just with a clean part of the paper towel, I'm just giving that a bit of a rub. Oh, it is drying quite quickly, which is good. So I'm sort of rubbing it into the surface because I don't want it to be too obvious. My ancient frame. It was an old frame to begin with. So it's quite ironic when I do this. I get an old frame, paint it to look new, and then weather it to look old again. Okay, so it's almost dry, but it's still a bit sticky. So what I'm going to do is put it aside to dry properly. And while it's drying, I'm going to work on the backing board. While the frame is drying, I am going to start working on the backing of the frame. Now, this is going to be an interesting project that can go 3 different ways. This is almost dry, so I can bring it up here and sort of touch it. It's almost dry. I'm going to cover the backing board with some pattern paper. Now I'm using pattern paper that is not too busy because remember we are going to be using this to hang Bible verses on. So you don't want the background to be so busy that it distracts from the verse or whatever you choose to hang on this. So I'm going to cover the backing board with this paper. So I have a backing board that is covered. I am then going to use some twine or thread of some sort, I haven't decided what I'm using, to wrap around the backing board so that I have different areas where I can clip little mini pins and hang either a large Bible verse or smaller ones, depending on what I want to hang on that day. Now, you don't have to do that. You could just use your backing board and have a clip stuck to it. Or you could actually get rid of the backing board and have just the threads across here. So there are 3 different options, and I will walk you through all 3 of them. So the first thing I'll do is cover the backing board. That will be step one, and as we go through I will walk you through all the 3 different options, and you can decide which one you'd rather have, or you could actually have a couple of them working together. I think we'll see how we go. I'm still making this up as I go, so it's a bit of an experiment. We'll see how we go. And what I'm going to do first of all is, the easiest way is, I'm not even going to cut the paper to size. I'm going to stick the backing board directly onto my sheet of paper. Once it's dry, then I will cut it out. So I'm going to stick it onto the smooth side. Give it a wipe down in case there's some dust on it. And I think I will use my collage medium because I know this sticks very well. I'm just brushing that all over the back of the board. And I'm working quickly because it does dry quite fast. You could use glue if you want, or Mod Podge. I'm just going through a collage medium phase at the moment. So working very, very quickly here. And laying my board on the paper. Then I'll just put something heavy on top of it. Nice heavy book. I'll pop that on top, some weight, just to help it stick down really well. Then once it's dry, all you need to do, I'll move this, is cut around the edge. And I'm just doing that with my blade. And there, done, easy. So the way it's looking, this will go in here. So if you don't want to use this string method that I'm using, this is the point where you could stick some sort of clip system directly onto your backing board. Now this, you will need to decide whether you want your frame to be horizontal or vertical. And then if you have, depending on what you have at your disposal, you might use little mini wooden clothes pegs and have a couple at the top. That would be, you know, one of the easiest options. Bit of glue along the side, stick them like this, using very strong glue obviously. So then you can actually just press them open and closed to pin your verse onto. If you have big metal hinge clips at your disposal, unfortunately I don't have any at the moment that I can show you, but you could use a very strong glue like E6000 and stick one at the top here. You could use these little types of clips if you have a very strong glue. Again, stick them like this. You could use 2 smaller ones or one of the bigger ones. You could even replace the backing board with corkboard and then use push pins. You could go all out and make some sort of system using those mini scrapbooking magnets. So at this point it's up to you what you want to put on your backing board. You might want a piece of Velcro. You could, if you don't have any sort of clips, you could stick a piece of Velcro across the top, and then the verses that we make later on, you could put pieces of Velcro on the back of them and Velcro them on. So there are lots and lots of different options, but I'm actually going to be using string. I've decided to use this We Are Memory Keepers string. The blue and white one was more aqua, I guess, but I quite like it with this background and this frame color. As you can see, I've never used it, and we won't talk about how long this has been in my stash. One of the mini themes going on behind the scenes of this retreat is not going out and buying all the stuff just so you can make a project. And if you do have the stuff, use it. So I'm finally going to use this. Now I'm just having a think of which orientation I want my frame. And I'm actually thinking, yeah, I'm going to have mine horizontal, because since I'm using strings, I will not always have one big verse. I might have a few smaller things pinned on here. So I'm going to keep it horizontal. And I'm going to pull out a lot of string. I can put my frame aside for now. as a rough measure, again, I'm making this up as I go along, so I'm not quite sure how I want it to look. Right now I'm thinking there are different ways that I could have this. I could be kind of conservative and have just across like this, or I could do something a little bit more funky. I think I might do something like that. Oops. And just give myself different options of where I can pin things. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So having wrapped that up without really thinking about where I was going with it and what I was doing, I will just cut my string here. So I hope you were watching because I'm not undoing it. And I'm just going to tie that up with a very strong double knot. And then I'm going to grab some washi tape. We all have different types of washi tape. We have our really good washi tape and our rubbish washi tape. This is not the time to use your rubbish washi tape. You want something that's going to stick, and it's going to stick well. You don't have to use washi tape. You could use packaging tape. You could use gaffer tape if you're really serious here. You could actually stick a piece of something on the back. I might end up doing that actually. But first off, I'm going to use some strong washi tape just to hold down the back of my string so it doesn't move around. As usual, I'm just ripping things instead of cutting it. And I could actually, if I wanted to, here we go, here's an idea. I'm just going to cover the whole back with washi. That will serve the dual purpose of holding my string down and making the back look pretty. And for anybody wondering, this is a Graphic 45 washi tape, but I really don't think it's available anymore. So there you go. So that's made the back look really pretty, and it's holding down all those strings. Just going to cut off those little rough edges. Now, I did say that there was a third option, and the third option is this. If you don't want a backing board, you could use your frame just like this with just strings across and turn it back. If I was doing this, I imagine I would probably try to staple them. So using your stapler but opening it up so that you're pushing straight into the board, I would put it down here, throw a staple in, pull it across, staple there, across again, staple it here, and back and forth until you've got a pattern that you like. If your stapler doesn't work, maybe some really, really strong glue. I would not just use hot glue because that will eventually come off in time, so something really, really strong. So that is 3 different options. You can have your backing board with a clip stuck on, you can have a backing board with string wound around it, or you can have no backing board with string coming across your frame. So as you can see, this is my preferred one today. So I'm going to pop that back into the frame. Very carefully. And with my very professional tool here, my knife, push those clips back down. So here we go. I have my frame with my strings. So I have my little pegs, which I might end up painting or doing something to. I might end up using something else over time, I'm not sure, but here are my little pegs for now that I can use to clip things. And there's our little frame. Quick and easy project. The only time-consuming part was painting, or rather waiting for paint to dry. So there will be a part 2 to this project, and that will be making some special little verses that we can pin onto the board. If you wanted to, you could actually decorate your frame. You could write something across the top of it, Psalm of the day perhaps, something like that. That's kind of a thought. I may or may not end up adding something like that. I'm not sure. I haven't put too much thought into where it goes from here, because once again, this retreat is not about all the stuff and all the complicated projects. It's about doing something quick and simple that leads to a deeper reason of why we are here. See, why we are here on retreat, not what. I just realised what that sounded like. Why am I here? I don't need to paint frames. No, okay, in all seriousness, a simple project that you can get done nice and quickly, that then leads you to reading your Bible, praying with your Bible, praying with the Psalms. If you're not someone who has considered the Psalms as prayers, this is my invitation to you to go to the book of Psalms and start flicking through it and start reading some of them and actually look at them with different eyes, with a different heart, and see them as the prayers that they are, and start picking out your favorites, because the more time you spend in that book, the more you start to really be drawn to some of the Psalms that really, really speak to you. And the ones that do speak to your heart, put bookmarks in your Bible, because our next little project, you'll be writing some of them out, clipping them onto this board, and then you can have be it your Psalm of the day, the Psalm of the week, the Psalm of a season. And that's what this project is about. It's more about reflecting on the Psalms than it is creating a piece of art. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and of course, if you are in the retreat, there will be an album for you to share your finished frame. If you're not in the retreat, the link is down below, along with all my other social links. Please do come and join us. And I think that's it. That's it for now. Keeping it short, keeping it simple. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.